Scientific evidence has demonstrated that physical activity plays a key role in promoting optimal health and development in children and youth, and in preventing disease, disability, and premature death in everyone. And whereas 2/3 of Canadians are not active enough to benefit their health, and whereas there is virtually no human condition that cannot be improved by increased physical activity, and whereas physical activity builds and maintains a healthy body and promotes well-being and decreases feelings of anxiety and depression, and whereas Canada's Physical Activity Guide recommends that everyone accumulate 30 to 60 minutes of moderate physical activity most or preferably all days of the week, and whereas Move for Health Day provides an opportunity to focus local, national, and international attention on the necessity and benefits of physical activity, and whereas federal and provincial territorial governments have recognized that physical inactivity is a major health concern in Canada, and that individual, community, national, and global collaboration is essential in educating and raising awareness of physical activity, hence promoting Move for Health Day. Now, therefore, I do hereby proclaim May 10th, 2021 as Move for Health Day in Dawson Creek. So, thank you. I gotta put my mask on. Thank you for coming this morning, and we appreciate the opportunity to promote and proclaim today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we were smiling. 2.2 is our proclamation of May 10th to 16th as Nursing Week. Whereas the City of Dawson Creek recognizes the vital contributions of nurses to healthcare in our community, and whereas the nursing profession meets the emerging health care needs of our city's population, individuals, families, and groups in a wide range of settings and for all aspects of health, including health promotion, illness prevention, treatment, maintenance, restoration, rehabilitation, and palliation. And whereas in cooperation across our provinces, licensed practical nurses, registered psychiatric nurses, registered nurses, and nurse practitioners will be participating in special events to promote good health and the prevention of illness and to increase public awareness of the nursing profession. And whereas Nursing Week is an opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the expertise and dedication of nurses, as well as encourage others to enter this worthy profession. Now, therefore, as the Mayor of the City of Dawson Creek, I proclaim that May 10th to 16th, 2021 be observed as Nursing Week in Dawson Creek. I really want to offer our sincere appreciation to all the nurses in Dawson Creek and the region, providing that support and care, and such a vital and important profession and service they provide. And we want to extend our sincere appreciation to all of them and hope that their week is filled with good health. Our next proclamation is May as Hospice Palliative Care Month for the South Peace Health Hospice Palliative Care Society. Whereas Hospice Palliative Care Month is focused on raising awareness and recognizing that everyone should have access to quality end-of-life care. And whereas the Dawson Creek Hospice and Palliative Care Society is comprised of a large number of volunteers that provide direct and indirect hospice palliative care service to those individuals living within Dawson Creek. And whereas member organizations collectively reflect the entire hospice palliative care continuum, from patients who are dying but living within their communities to those who are dying in hospitals. And whereas the Dawson Creek Palliative Care Society seek to ensure that hospice palliative care for patients and their families is integrated and of high quality, and believes that this can be achieved through commitment, awareness, and partnerships. Now, therefore, I do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Hospice Palliative Care Month in Dawson Creek. Honestly, I think for all of us, on behalf of all of us, I don't think we can say enough about the volunteerism that goes on in a community. And this one in particular, I think, touches us in a way that none of us could imagine until you're there when dealing with a loved one who is reaching the end of life. And so to the volunteers and to all those who provide those services to and on behalf of the community and palliative care, we want to say thank you so much and our sincere appreciation to your volunteer efforts. That ends our proclamations, and now we move on to our delegations 2.4. We have Brian Patterson and Mark Finney, representatives of the Timberline Trail and Nature Club, in attendance, regarding providing us an update on the history and current state of I think the infamous Mcqueen Slough that sits on the border of our community, that all of us who have been here for any length of time know about Mcqueen Slough, and for a variety of reasons. So I want to welcome Brian and Mark this morning to our council meeting. Good morning. Welcome.
Hello. Hi. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Welcome.
Good.
And thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
So the floor is yours.
All right. So I'm just going to share my screen here and get the presentation up and running. Okay. Is everybody able to hear me and see this presentation at the moment?
Yes, it's both are on our screen, and we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, then I'll begin. So, yeah, thank you very much for having me here today. My name is Brian Patterson. I'm here to provide an update on, I guess, what we call the situation at Mcqueen Slough on behalf of the Timberline Trail and Nature Club, which is a long-standing nature club in the Dawson Creek area. Now, the citizens of Dawson Creek are facing the loss of access to Mcqueen Slough, and the site is facing what we would call a lack of management that has led to the degradation of the original intent of the slough. Now, I imagine most people are familiar with Mcqueen Slough. However, if you look into the bottom left-hand portion of your screen, you see the city of Dawson Creek, and as you head north up Rolla Road, the area outlined in red represents Mcqueen Slough, and that's what we're discussing today. Now, Mcqueen Slough is a very special place. The land was secured by the Nature Trust and Ducks Unlimited between 1987 and 1989. It was leased to the Ministry of Forest Lands, Natural Resources, and Rural Development, I think I got that, or FLNRORD, to manage as a conservation land. Indeed, Mcqueen Slough is a bird lover's paradise. 175 species of birds have been documented there. It's an eBird hotspot, and for people that aren't familiar with eBird, it's an online forum that naturalists and birders use to share observations and sightings. And in fact, Mcqueen Slough is recognized as an international eBird hotspot, and that is quite a remarkable achievement. Within British Columbia, Mcqueen Slough frequently tops top 10 lists of birding sites. And it's within northeastern BC, it's listed as the #1 birding site in a recent book, Bird Finding in British Columbia, written by Richard and Russell Cannings, who are both well-known and respected birders in British Columbia. Significantly, Mcqueen Slough represents one of 2 remaining prairie pothole lakes within the South Peace region. Technically, it's managed for black terns and eager grebes, 2 species of birds, but there's a host of other species that benefit from the conservation of this area. I think it's important to note that bird watching is in fact the fastest growing recreational activity in North America. And Mcqueen Slough is a site that is near and dear to citizens of Dawson Creek. It brings birding tourists from across British Columbia regularly, and these people end up spending money in the city as well. So a very important site from a number of standpoints. I'd like to just give you a quick overview of the Timberline Trail and Nature Club and what we do at Mcqueen Slough. The Timberline Trail and Nature Club was founded over 40 years ago in Dawson Creek. We host or facilitate regular naturalist events, including the Christmas bird count, annual hawk watches, BC community bat roost counts, and many more things. Over the years, we've done maintenance and minor fixing to try and keep Mcqueen Slough usable, including things like garbage and shotgun shell cleanups, annual swallow box / bluebird box cleanouts and maintenance to help the nesting birds there, filling holes, safeguarding when possible, and then requesting volunteer labor and stuff to maintain access at the site. One of the more significant things that we're involved in, and a real important part of Mcqueen Slough, is to educate the youth. And Project Webfoot, or some people may know it as Project Greenwing, has been doing this for many years for grades 4 to 7 students in school district 59. The education stations, which include bird watching, plant ecology, invertebrates, duck tolling, they're led by Timberline Trail and Nature Club members and other volunteers. And this has been going on for the past decade. Ducks Unlimited used to provide summer student support for Project Webfoot. However, once they moved their Northern British Columbia office to Williams Lake in 2017, realistically, their presence has been dwindling actually over the past 10 years or so. So as mentioned, Ducks Unlimited is sort of, who was doing some management on the site had left the region before they actually sort of left. The Nature Club has been raising awareness for years and trying to get answers regarding the management of Mcqueen. Raising awareness has sort of resulted in the absentee land managers pulling infrastructure for endeavors such as Project Greenwing. The photo on the left portion of your screen, that's the tilting bridge, the main bridge that was removed prior to that bridge being removed into which people would just hop over and use anyway. And then the third photo on the right shows the site once that boardwalk has been eliminating the option to have a continuous trail there at this point in time. Money to improve the site, but we We have not specifically approached them. Our idea was, to come to the city first, given that the school district was sort of worried about funding availability. However, we do have names of people at the school district that we are planning to approach. We also have a lot of community support to move forward, including from the Dawson Creek Society for Community Living and the Dawson Creek Sporting Club.
Thank you. Go ahead.
One last question. Well, it's not a question, it's a statement. But it's good to see you guys are making headway. I just have a couple of questions with respect to the license of occupation.
Or discussed. The Ministry of Forests, Land, and so on. And as a club, we have been discussing how and if we are interested in taking that on. We're definitely interested in whether it is the club taking it on themselves or whether it is the formation of a separate entity. Those are both options. But specific details, sort of have not been determined. Most likely it would be a long-term license of occupation, however.
Okay, and a quick follow-up, if I could. So the current land managers won't assume liability if you guys take over management, but presumably up to this point, they have had liability as the site was allowed to fall into a state of disrepair. It just seems, I mean, I understand from their perspective why you wouldn't, but certainly I don't imagine you managing the site would pose any greater risk than the work that's been, well, I guess the work that hasn't been done out there up to this point. So it seems curious that why they wouldn't maybe be willing to step up and offer you a grant or some funding to cover the liability insurance.
Yeah. Well, basically, I think they are likely to remove all structures if we don't take this license of occupation to simply, remove the liability. There is, there would be some existing liability on the site, I'm sure. However, we've requested some of that information. Currently, it seems that liability would be would be the Flinrose responsibility. However, when asked that question directly in some of the meetings that we've had between Flinroe, Ducks Unlimited, and the Nature Trust, They continue to say it's complicated with some shared liability between, Ducks and the Nature Trust. However, it doesn't seem that complicated in the lease agreement. That being said, in order to get a memorandum of understanding, which we're told may outline some more of this, we have been directed down the road of a Freedom of Information request from the government. We have undertaken that and are awaiting the results. I don't know that that's going to shed much more information. We have had a legal opinion on this, and it's been said that Flynn Row does have liability for the site. So we'll see. One of the big issues is that it simply comes down to capacity as well. Even within Flynn Row, they don't have a lot of capacity for managing these lands at this point, and I think that is affecting what's happened on the site to a great deal. There is currently an audit that we know of conservation lands in British Columbia. I've been in touch with the Auditor General recently. We are awaiting the results of that audit. I have a feeling that it won't reflect well on conservation land management within the province.
Thank you, Brian. Anything further from council? So, sincerely, we appreciate you coming this morning to give an update on this. It's been very, very informative and really worthwhile. We don't make a decision at this point while the delegations are here. The item will come back under Mayor's business, and council will deal with it later on in the agenda. Brian, thank you so much again for being here this morning. We appreciate your passion and your volunteerism to this really important asset.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much to all council for having me here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
So that item will come back under Mayor's business. And our next delegation this morning, 2.5, we have Greg Duick is joining us from Peace Energy Cooperative. No stranger, I think, to any of us in the community. And Greg's been that passionate leader of the solar initiative and certainly the Peace Energy Co-op. And it's really good to have Greg joining us here this morning. Via technology.
Look at us moving into the next century.
Watch us go. We shouldn't say that too quickly, right? Melissa's in there.
Good morning.
We hear you. We just haven't got video yet, Greg.
Oh, sorry about that.
There you are. Good morning. Welcome. It's good to have you join us today, Greg. And so thank you. And the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Mayor and Council and staff for your time this morning. And just going to quickly run through some solar information, Peace Energy information, and some potential grants that the city might take advantage of. So in general, it's kind of like why solar. I've got a picture of a wind turbine here, and Peace Energy Peace Energy Cooperative was started as a renewable energy investment cooperative to get people involved in renewable energies. And we started with a wind project, of course, on Bear Mountain. Now, of course, sorry, change my slide here. There we go. Now the options have changed to solar. Solar used to be very expensive. As manufacturing has gone up, of course, the cost of solar has come way down. The quality is going up all the time, and the energy density is going up, which is even more important. So, there's a really great reason to go solar now. Solar is one of the cheapest forms of electricity around the world. There's literally millions of solar panels installed every day, and pretty much all of the energy or the solar production every year is installed. It's not carried over very much. So that's kind of why go solar. These are some of the systems that we've installed. Basically, every system is custom designed for that location, for the needs, for the budget, etc. And some of the newer options that are coming out in the bottom right, you can't see it very well, but the piece that's over our deck there, that's a bifacial solar panel, so it actually makes power on the front and from the backside reflection.
Great.
And it gives,
Sorry, if
yeah.
I can just, can you share your screen? And then that way people who are viewing and watching us online can also see your presentation. Council have it, but it's just more worthwhile if you could share your screen, then we can have the viewers see it as well.
Absolutely, my apologies. Okay, sorry, sorry about this.
No problem.
Somehow my computer seems to have lost my screen here. And stop this.
Can we do it?
Oh, technology, you gotta love it. Terribly sorry. I seem to have, for some reason.
We're going to see if we can share it from here, Greg, and put the presentation on.
I had it working just before here, and now I can't seem to bring that screen up to share. Okay, so
we have it on now, Greg. If you just want to tell us to change the slide, the girls can do that.
Sure. I just got to bring it up on my screen here so I can see. Okay, yeah. So if you want to go to the next screen, please.
Slide 3, I think we were on, Melissa.
Okay, yeah. So these are some of the systems that we've done around the area. The next slide. So the reasons to go solar now, of course, fight climate change by producing energy on the building where you're using that energy. That's the most efficient energy you can get, bar none. We have an excellent solar resource. A lot of people think of Germany as being good solar. Well, we actually have a better solar resource than they do. It's just a matter of investing in it and getting it in place. The cost of solar, as I noted in that graph previously, has dropped hugely, about 80% over the last 5 years. So it's definitely the fastest growing energy in the world. And part of that is because, the energy is a 25-year output warranty and the lifespan of probably 40 to 50 years. So it's long-term, it's low maintenance, it's going to keep making energy. And BC Hydro has an excellent net meter policy. It allows for up to 100 kilowatts on an individual metered account. And so you can make a lot of energy with 100 kilowatts. And I'll go over the options that we kind of looked at for the city. And Peace Energy Cooperative is here to make that quick and easy for you. Next slide. So yeah, in general, like what I said, the cost of energy is going up. We know that when April 1st of this year, it went up again. Next year, it goes up April 1st again. Overall, you invest in solar for the long term. It costs at the beginning to get it installed, but then your costs are stabilized over a period of time. And it's a cost displacement. You don't have batteries. It's just displacing the cost of the energy you're using right now. And you also make credits that you can use off later on. So next slide. So this is kind of an average energy production graph for this area. And what we notice is that, of course, March through October, as we know, the days get so long, we make a lot of power through the summer. Our solar systems are really hitting hard right now. On days like today, the energy is really being produced. We're not using a lot of energy now. So a lot of that energy is put into our accounts as a credit. And that credit can be used off later on, like through the winter. So that's where a lot of the value of the solar comes. It kind of depends on which system, which account, how much energy you use, how much energy you produce. But in general, that's kind of the idea. Next slide, please. So here's the arena in Hudson's Hope. Just to give you an idea, you can see the solar energy production graph there on the left in green. Now you notice it drops way off October, November, December. This last year, November was a horrible month for solar. But of course, every year is different and it changes a little bit up and down for every month. But in general, we're going to see that curve where the summers produce a lot of energy and the winters not so much. So we don't worry a lot about snow in the winter. Whatever melts off is great. And it really depends on the slope of the array and whether it's a roof mount or ground mount. Now, the nice thing down below, if you look at that, that's the array, and the blue is that everything's nicely producing power. You see 3 of them that are black or dark colored. So that means that those are ones that need to be looked at as far as maintenance. So we do include, like when we're doing our calculations, half of 1% of the initial cost of the system per year as a budgeted amount to actually do maintenance and check on things, make sure they're operating, because if you lose even a minute or an hour of sunlight, you're not getting that back. So we want to make sure our system, our investment is maximizing that production all the time. And this monitoring is available for 25 years over the period of the system. Next slide, please. Here's another example from Hudson's Hope. We're just kind of showing you different, commercial or large-scale systems that you might look at for the city. This is another one that's on the district office. And again, the array is very sporadic on that roof because we had to work around a lot of different obstructions. That's why every system is custom designed for the needs of that location. In this case, we're making about 80% of the power that is normally needed for the shop here, for the fire hall and district office. That's 80% net zero is what we refer to that. Next slide, please. In this case, the public workshop has an excellent roof, wide open, made for solar. It has a very large solar system. And in this case, we're 100% net zero. So in an average year, we're going to produce 100% of the power that building needs, cuts their energy costs way down. Like, they have very little for cost. There's some base costs we can't displace directly, but for the most part, their electricity costs are very low. And that system, again, is good for 25 to 50 years. If you note the arena down below, it's 132 kilowatt. That's the array on the roof. We have room for more there, but unfortunately with the BC Hydro program, we can only do 100 kilowatts on the inverter. So we maxed out this system. We're about 50% or so net zero, which is still excellent, reducing a lot of their costs. And if they ever change the program in the future, then we can always look at expanding the system. Next slide, please. This is another example of the sewage treatment lagoons. A very large array. It's 650 feet long, I believe it is. And again, we're 100% net zero. So the system was designed to produce as much power as they normally need. And, we can do it on a roof, on a ground mount, or other things. So next slide, please. Here's an example. If you know, this is their outdoor pool. The building that they have for change rooms and equipment, et cetera, has solar hot water on it already. So we couldn't do a roof mounted array. So we thought, well, let's do a ground mounted array. We'll put it up in the air so that it's away from inquiring minds and hands. We'll give people get shade when they come to the park. And then we give it some flare so that this is more of a centerpiece now. It's called the solar wave and fits in with the pool, still makes excellent energy and has multiple purposes otherwise as well. Next slide, please. Of course, the solar EV connection, electric vehicles are coming into vogue for pretty much everything. It's not just Tesla cars. There's trucks coming out this year. There are delivery vehicles, there are UTVs, there are tractors, there are chainsaws, pretty much everything you can think of. So if you're making your power with your own solar system that you've invested your money in, you can now use that energy for other things as well. And your operating costs on all of these things go down substantially. Next slide, please. So in 2017, we were commissioned by the City of Dawson Creek to review these solar opportunities. We looked at all of the different potential BC Hydro locations, metered accounts, that is. And then from those, we chose, I think it was 17 or 19 locations that have the best opportunity for solar. Next slide. This is just an example. This is one of the arenas, and we looked at the amount of energy used every year, how much solar we might be able to install on the roof, and then the cost. So the solar displaced would be the net zero, the estimated savings at that time, and the estimated cost to install that. So this is one of the locations, and we'll go to the next slide. We kind of grouped the locations. At that time, we were looking at grants that might be for a certain type of venue. That still may be the case, but in this case, we grouped them. And you can see, of course, all that basic information for each of those sites. So there's a lot of opportunity on different locations around the city where you could put solar and it would immediately reduce the cost and it would last for a long time to come and would reduce the carbon footprint as well. This is, of course, again, was done in 2017. So there's some opportunities to update that if you like. No, it's okay. And we can look at checking that if that information is still valid. Next slide. So one of the grants that's available recently is called the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Grant. And I think you have a grant writer internally who might be able to follow up on this more. The one level is $100,000 to $3 million. It's an ongoing intake, as I understand it, for 5 years. The next level is $3 million to $25 million. That is limited to a July 6th of this year intake. And it is competitive, where the first one is a non-competitive. Basically, you get your grant in. As long as you check off the boxes, you should be getting some money for that. So that's one excellent opportunity, I believe. And the next slide, I added this from what I'd sent you before. Oh, sorry, you don't have the next slide. I have the next slide. There's another grant opportunity that just came out last week, which I was made aware of, which you might also be able to apply for. And it also covers things like plans and studies, which could really help if you wanted to upgrade this type of an assessment or look at other locations where you might be able to get grant money to do that, and then use that information to apply for a grant to actually put in the project. So this is just a really quick overview of kind of what solar can do for you, what the benefits are, how it generally works. Of course, there's a lot more depth to that if you have more questions, or if you want to participate in one of our Save with Solar sessions, or I can do a more in-depth seminar for you. If you have any questions, I could do that. Or
Thank you, Greg. So thank you so much. And so Councillor Parslow.
Yes, thanks, Greg. That's great to have a refresher on this again. And Peace Energy is doing exactly what we asked. Keep us up to date on grants. The grants that you referenced, are they 50-50 or 80%? Does the city have to have some share of the funding?
I believe they're 80%, but the second one that I just heard about on Friday, I believe it can be stacked with the other grant. So you may actually be able to get 100% between the two. Again, I'm not sure of all the details. It may take some further research on that. But even if you did have to come up with 20%, and pardon me for speaking budget internally, but there would be an excellent opportunity there for the financial feedback on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dober?
You're good.
Oh, I'm good? Oh, it's been a while. Thank you for the presentation. It was great. I just had one question on your costs and stuff for 2017. You went over them, and on your first slide, you said that the cost of solar has went down 80%. So is that meaning like that would probably reflect if we were to get updated costs, that those would be, the $5 million to do all those, it would be 80% of that?
It would reflect somewhat. The cost has kind of come down per watt installed. What we're seeing is the energy is much greater on per solar panel basis. So when we did that study, I think I was looking at about 320 or 340 watt solar panels. Now we're talking 425, 450 watt solar panels. So it's the cost per watt has gone down. So for the same money, you could actually get more energy on, and sometimes we're limited by the roof space. So that's a good thing because now we can put more energy on some of those buildings.
Okay, thank you.
I noticed too, there's a couple of those ones that are in there where we had kind of said, well, we can go with a 5 megawatt system, like the Harold Hanson Reservoir. That would not be under the net meter program. That would be a kind of a different way of doing that. So some of those costs were kind of extra large because we were thinking of going for grants.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Darcy. Any other questions? Greg, thanks so much. Honestly, it was really good to have you come back in and give us an update on this. And as you've indicated, the efficiency and costs and all those things continue to evolve in a very positive way. And certainly being on the RD, watching the Hudson Hope experience of that project was really, really very strong. So we'll bring it back, and I'm sure administration you've tweaked us to some discussion, and we thank you for doing that this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
So we'll now move to new councillor business. Brenda, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Late item. Let me just get out of my... So I received a call from Adam at Ovintiv last week, and they're doing a major completions operation at the end of May. We used the property over at east of the Encana Event Center, the parking lot normally used for the RV parking during the rodeo, and allowed them to park the sand trucks to park over there when they were in town and get them off the streets and behind over by Walmart and the Encana Event Center. And so they've asked if they could have access to that area for staging their trucks for the week of May 20th to 29th. So I asked them to send me a note, and we would get it in front of council. Blair, could you just give an update on what we need to do?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to council. So the request has come in to utilize really it's a parking area that is just east of the Lakota Center to deal with this. They have proposed that should they damage the grounds, alter it in any way, they would come in and clean that up and do what was necessary. I think there is an opportunity, particularly with what's going on, to keep the trucks on the east side of town. The frac is taking place out there. So it is really going to be a decision of mayor and council. Should you allow this to transpire, we can negotiate with them. There would be, there's always questions around liability. Should there be any drainage of fluid? I mean, that can be worked out through the administration to come up with an agreement with Ovintiv. But the reason it's here today is I believe the frac is going to begin on the 20th of this month and run for 8 to 9 days.
Thanks, Blair. Councillor Parslow. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I would like to move that we approve this request, subject to administration being satisfied that the land will be restored to its current condition after the use.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Javetkov. Discussion? To me, I think this is a really good option, and to me, that we've talked about it in the past, is to try to find a way to develop this into a more permanent location, both for the benefit of the exhibition and fair when they're parking the RVs there, and to me, to get it off of a dirt and grass area into a more permanent position, and maybe that's what we look to develop. But I think it's a good use of this property. I do. I think it keeps them off our streets. It keeps them off the roads of congesting the traffic, as well as damaging any of our roads and pavements. So, Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know in years past that the Encana Event Center parking lot has been also used as a staging area, and given it's currently basically dug up and there's not much more damage that can be done to it, was there any thought given to putting them there as opposed to in this field where they will have to restore stuff?
Blair?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. We hadn't considered that, although we think more damage can't be done to that parking lot. I think the reality is significant further damage could be incurred to make it even worse. I think we are in a position where the access out of the requested area is one that meets the needs, and I think we would be, if you're looking for a recommendation from administration, stick with the requested area versus that parking lot. For whatever reason, we see the condition it's in and in dire need of repair, but it is many millions of dollars to redo that parking lot as it presently sits, and I'm not inclined to, I guess, take that risk of making it even worse and costing more to reclaim it. So.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So I've been updated on my agenda. And so, my apologies. We have 3.1, we have a letter from Michelle Mobley, Board Chair of the South Peace Building Learning Together, with an offer to assist with the Child Care Action Plan in Dawson Creek. Councillor Brenda, did you want to speak, or was that just...
Yes, please. Through your worship, just as far as procedure, a motion to receive the late item needs to be approved before it is discussed.
Okay, thank you. So a motion to approve the late items, Councillor Parslow. So,
I don't know.
well,
Of course.
thank you. Second? Councillor Wilbur, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So item 3.1, letter from Michelle Mobley, Board Chair at the South Peace Building Learning Together Society, and offer to assist with the Child Care Action Plan in Dawson Creek.
I think
Go ahead, Councillor Parslow.
I just need some information, I think, from you, Mayor, about this. You know, obviously, I'm very much supportive and appreciative of this letter, but the last council meeting, was it, that we approved a motion about researching grants? How does that last resolution of council interface with this, or how can we marry them together? So I guess I'm asking for information.
Sure. You know, we had a number of meetings recently with respect to entities on child care, school board, Northern Health, and we've been exploring this funding mechanism. I've reached out to the YMCA, the CEO and out of the YMCA and Prince George to talk about, because I know that they do some services and lead some services in Fort St. John and Chetwynd. So it's still kind of a work in progress, and we need to, I think, as we build this model of enhancing and developing a child care action plan for a community, we need to find that agency who's going to lead it. And I'm happy to help try to facilitate it, but at this point, I think this letter is one that I appreciate, that we're going to look to have that support from our community organizations and certainly from the from Michelle at this. I think it's a wonderful gesture. I just don't know we're at the stage yet to say that we're leading it. But I appreciate their offer of offering to support and involve in any way they can.
Go ahead. So Michelle makes reference to a childcare action plan, that there's funding available that closes June the 1st, right? So is she saying that they're willing to apply for the grant for the community? I'm just trying to marry everything up here, you know, and I recognize it is complicated.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of this grant, so I can't speak to it.
No.
Councillor Wilbur?
Thank you. Yeah, as I'm reading it, this is how I'm reading it, is that they'd be happy to offer their services, but I'm reading it as they would expect the city to apply for that grant. So that's where, right? I mean, I think it would be beneficial for us to support them in applying for the grant, but I'm not sure that the city should apply for it, then put that money towards their services. So that's where my confusion lies.
And certainly my direction that I brought forward to council at the last meeting was we would look to have an agency or an organization take the lead on the child care, and we would certainly facilitate and support that, but not be the lead in organizing it. So, yeah. So perhaps if I can, that we receive this now for our information. We'll put it together with the material that we're working on, and once I get back from the YMCA in terms of my discussions with them, we met with Northern Health on Friday after the close of the NCLGA and got some more information there. So it is definitely going in a very positive way in my view. It just, we can't say that we're in a place where we can apply for funding. But I certainly appreciate this, and I certainly will reach out to Michelle and ensure that we engage with them as we develop it further. So perhaps that's if we just have a request, a motion to receive for information at this point, and then I'll have that information as we put it together with our child care work. Councillor Parslow move. Second, Councillor Wilbur. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's important, and certainly it's really, really, I think, necessary, and we'll just continue to move it forward in a way that works. Councillor Parslow, then, Councillor Earl, did you want to speak?
No, I was going to
Okay.
move the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow.
Just to highlight something, I understand where Councillor Wilbur's coming from as I look at the last paragraph, but in the middle paragraph, there's a sentence here that the BLT would like to offer our service in the creation of an up-to-date childcare action plan. So I just wanted to highlight that.
And I will follow up with them on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 3.2, we have a letter from Marcia Stewart, Executive Director of the Dawson Creek Art Gallery, regarding a request for a resolution of support for a grant funding. Councilor Wilbur.
Thank you. I have to declare conflict of interest because OES actually stands for Aubert Economic Society.
Thank you. And I have Councilor Earl.
Do I need to make a separate motion to receive this as a late item, or can I just, okay,
Yep.
I'll move that we receive this as a late item.
Thank you. Second, Councilor Kemp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead, Councilor Earl.
I'll move the resolution that the City of Dawson Creek supports the application to Northern Development Initiative Trust Society for the Northern Healthy Communities Fund.
Thank you. Second, Councilor Kemp. Discussion. Councilor Parslow.
I just need administration to help me understand how this interfaces with the motion that was passed at the last council meeting around murals. Is this, I thought we had dealt with this already, but help me.
Blair. My screen has gone. There I am.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you, Councillor Parslow. So they were, and we did deal with this originally, the location that they were applying for the grant, or the actual grant application. They have been in contact with NDIT, who have informed them that this is a better location to apply. They have a number of different grants available, and the original one that they were applying for wasn't as good a fit as this one, so they've altered their application. That's all it is.
Thank you. Brenda, did you want to speak?
That was fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Me and you turning your mic off. Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. If we can have Councillor Wilbur, can be. New councillor business, anyone? Councillor Parslow, go ahead.
Just wondering if we, as we've been sort of correct here, item 3.3, do you need a motion to?
Perhaps. Do you want a motion that we receive that late item on 3.3 as well, Brenda? Yes?
So moved.
Thank you. Move Councillor Parslow, second Councillor Kemp. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Javetkov.
So these are comments that are in addition to the recommendations to the housing report for to do with the consultation process. I brought up a few at the last meeting, but I'd like to add that I'd like to see a review of the cost drivers that are actually driven by the city and the regional district, to see if there's anything that's any of those cost drivers that can be amended or reduced. And I think that could be pursued during the consultation process. The other thing is that I think they need to make some recommendations that are specific to optimum locations of the various levels of housing, levels of social housing. You know, the example of the land that we've got up on the hill compared to the land that we've got, you know, within the downtown area. I think those kind of issues, they may apply to other aspects of the housing as well. So that's something that I think that could be pursued during the consultations as well. Another thing is opportunities for local suppliers, and I think it was mentioned, and I don't know if, I didn't notice it being written up in recommendations that were submitted there, but you know, if we're partnering with BC Housing, for example, what process do they go through to tender these projects? Do they tender them, you know, do our suppliers in the city have opportunities to bid? And the last one is a consideration or pursuing the opportunities within the city for existing housing complexes, whether they're apartments or individual houses or you know, whatever opportunities are out there, rather than building new or for new developments, to possibly purchase an existing building or you know, something like what they're doing in down at Vancouver. They're purchasing hotels. Well, if BC Housing is looking at developing social housing, I think there's an opportunity maybe to pursue, you know, buildings that are available here in the city. So those 4 items I would like to add to the list that to send to the is it urban housing? Yeah, for to deal with through the consultation process.
Thank you for that. Any other new councillor business? Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I'm pleased to be able to announce that the NDIT has awarded the Dawson Creek Sportsman's Club $300,000, which will see the return of an indoor shooting range to the citizens' use, for the citizens' use, a year-round facility. And if I may, as a member of that club, give appreciation to Lakeview Credit Union, who's helping the club with a significant grant in making the clubhouse more accessible and usable for people. So,
Thank you. Any other new councillor business? Thank you. So minutes, item 5.1, minutes for a regular meeting of council of April 26th for adoption. Move, Councillor Kemp, second, Councillor Dober. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And any business arising out of the minutes for anyone? 6.1 deals with the housing report that Councillor Javetkov was just speaking of. So we have a memo from our corporate officer with the recommendations. Councillor Parslow?
well, Councillor Javetkov had a number of items that, so it seems to me that some of them were straightforward suggestions. Others might be a little involved. I'm wondering if we can, if the appropriate way of handling this is to defer this to our next council meeting, if we can, with Councillor Javetkov's ideas listed, and then we could have time to study it.
Sure. Do we have a time frame that when we have to get that back to the PRRD as part of the Urban Matters report? I don't think there was. I think they had to file their report by the end of April for the UBCM funding, but I don't know that there was anything time sensitive after that. No? So then we can make that by
I'd
way of a
like to
motion?
move that we defer this matter to our next council meeting, and that the recommendation or the motions include the suggestions made by Councillor Javetkov, so that we all have time to think about them before deciding today.
Okay. So we move for deferral. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dober? Councillor Wilbur?
Can I add to it now that it's, okay. So one of the things that caused me concern when I read this, and I think there's great consultation with groups in the community, but where it was missed was the actual groups who are helping subsidize people to get into housing. So when the ministry gives you $500 to $700 for housing, and the cheapest available place is $11.50 per month, it is the user groups like Aubert, Nenas, Native Housing, Aboriginal Family Services that are subsidizing those people so that they're not homeless. So I think it's really important that those service groups in the community, and I've listed some of the major ones, but there's others, Catholic Social Services, I think they need to be asked for some input as well, because they are the ones with boots on the ground, making sure our people are not homeless, that they're fed, and that they're reaching success and learning some skills. So I don't think the community realizes just how much support and funding goes into those who have less in our community, whether it be seniors or people with multiple barriers. There's a housing issue. So when BC Housing puts in a complex and it's oversubscribed for applications, that tells us something. And homelessness does not mean you're on the street. Homelessness means you don't have a permanent address. You're sleeping on someone's couch. You are, maybe being put up in a hotel room because you're in an emergency situation. So I think the user groups really need to be asked their demographics and their case studies on who they're supporting, because I think council and the community would be absolutely shocked to know how bad the housing situation really is in our community, and it's bad.
Thank you. So if you can certainly provide that input into our information as we consider it for our next council meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Javekwa?
Yeah, so I was responding to the email that was sent out, and I think Brenda sent it out, that if we had more suggestions as to items that should be considered during the consultations, that we would deal with them in new councillor business. Okay, that was my intent. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what this motion is addressing. Are we going to sort of put that forward, another opportunity for comments?
It would seem that we've deferred to allow for further input into the feedback we provide to Urban Matters through the RD.
Okay, so that means that people didn't, or that they didn't consider proposing comments for during new councillor business, that they've got another chance now.
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Parslow?
It means that your ideas will be listed in the motion, and that we always give ourselves some time to think about these things. I mean, if you'd shared your ideas with me before the council meeting, I wouldn't be in this position of not.
Well, then we'll set up a time on Saturdays for you to
Saturday we have
together.
coffee.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion to defer. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 7.1, we have a letter from Kim Hughes-Brinsky, the Executive Director of the South Peace Child Development Center, regarding a request for a letter of support. Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move that we receive this for discussion.
We don't make motions for receive for discussion.
Can't we make an exception?
We can make a motion that we approve it, or we receive it for information, or we
I would
table it.
move that we receive it for consideration. No, receive it for approval, yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kemp. Go ahead, Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be funny here, but I'm getting a little confused with this childcare business, and I'm concerned that we might be going in so many different directions, different groups, that we're going to have a fragmented approach. I just wondered if other councillors are sensing, we hear we're talking about something for including something in the hospital. The Child Development Centre is going to have something. We have the Better Learning, whatever the group was before, BLT. it does need that community-wide coordination. So, you know what I mean? It's, I appreciate this letter and all the stuff, but I'm just wondering if we might weaken if we have a multitude of these places, then will they all be able to operate?
So my, honest to goodness, the last interaction about 2 months ago, when I had the group in Northern Lights College and the providers and Northern Health and the different entities and Southeast Community Resources Society, and we were talking about the capacity, and a comment was made by one of them that, look, the capacity required for childcare, infant, toddler, childcare, expanded levels, is you could add 100 spaces into our community and it would still be needing more support. So it's a and I guess that's the awakening for me in terms of realizing how big the bowl of ice cream is that we're taking on here, trying to get to a model of childcare. And there are so many components to it that the complexities, it's just not childcare from 8 to 5, it's infant toddler, it's preschool, after school. So I think the Child Development Center have also recognized it for their programs and saying we need to add capacity, and we're going to try to do that. And I know I talked to Joanna from the Calvin Crook Performing Arts Center through the Kiwanis Child Care. They're looking at expanding, trying to expand capacity. So it's everyone is in that mode of trying to meet the needs of the demand. The comments from young mums, expectant mums, when they find out they're going to have a baby, they're starting to try to find infant toddler care 2 years down the road, because when they go back to work after the 1 year of maternity leave, they can't find the space today. So I think this is just one more example of that, Councillor Parslow, of folks trying to find that capacity. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree. To Councillor Parslow's point, I can appreciate how getting these letters and inundated with this can make it seem like a very diffuse endeavor to pursue, and that everybody kind of has their fingers in different pies. But as a parent of a 3-year-old, I can promise you that there is not currently an overabundance of capacity, and while I think I know there's the hub that operates out of Co-op, or was operating out of Co-op, was a very good place to go as far as collating all of the information around early childhood resources in Dawson Creek. There could be a more dedicated approach to that. At this point, any capacity is good capacity. I know there's some daycare operators that don't operate throughout the summer, so if you can add more capacity, I take your point, but this really is a matter of we just need more capacity in town.
Thank you. Councillor Javekov?
Yeah, I'd commend the group for taking on this project. I mean, we're always concerned about the availability of spaces, and here's what better outfit than Child Development Center to put together a daycare. So I'm not worried about the NDIT getting inundated with applications. They're pretty big organization, well-funded. They've got intelligent people. They can certainly adjudicate their applications without us worrying about it.
Thank you. Yeah, the funding opportunities that exist today, the federal government, provincial government, everybody's looking to build childcare. So, thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.2, we have a letter from our grant writer, Becky, in regards to requesting a resolution of support for an application for the Kembork Aquatic Center. Councillor Javekov?
I'll move that the City of Dawson Creek Council supports the grant application to the Northern Development Initiative Trust by the City of Dawson Creek for a grant of up to $122,938 for the Kembork Aquatic Center flooring and lockers project from the Northeast Regional Development account for the NDIT Recreation Infrastructure Fund.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kemp, discussion? Councillor Earl?
And I do apologize for not reviewing previous materials before asking this question with respect to this year's capital commitments. These grants we're applying for, they are monies we've already secured through our capital out. Okay, Flavia is nodding, so I'll withdraw my question as answered sufficiently.
Councillor Parslow?
If we ignore the LOTA component, is this the second time that the flooring's been replaced since the building was completed?
Through your worship, there's segments of the flooring that's being replaced. Not all flooring's replaced, just like the lockers are certain segments, so each year we do a certain area.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.3, we have a letter from Becky, our grant writer, in regards to a resolution for support for an application to NDIT for our Kin Arena washroom and change room upgrades. Councillor Earl?
I'll move that the City of Dawson Creek Council supports the grant application to the Northern Development Initiative Trust by the City of Dawson Creek for a grant of up to $100,000 for the Kin Arena washroom and change room upgrade from the Northeast Regional Development Account and for the NDIT Recreation Infrastructure Fund.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilbur? Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.4, we have a letter from Becky, our grant writer, in regards to a resolution of support for an application to NDIT for a Kin Park multi-use facility project. Councillor Javetkov?
Move that the City of Dawson Creek Council supports the grant application to the Northern Development Initiative Trust by the City of Dawson Creek for a grant of up to $300,000 for the Kin Park multi-use facility project from the Northeast Regional Development Account for the NDIT Recreation Infrastructure Fund.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kemp? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.5, we have a letter from Doug Stryker, property owner at the City of Dawson Creek, in regards to Council's consideration of a water bill in regards to a water leak. Councillor Parslow?
I move that we decline this request.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Javetkov? Discussion. Administration, can you give us a little explanation in terms of the charges and water, sewer, et cetera? Kevin?
Yeah, good morning, through your worship. I did chat with Mr. Stryker. Some of his numbers and percentages are just slightly off, so I'll just clarify. Over this billing period and during this, when he had an unfortunate leak that leaked down into the crawl space of a rental property, and he was unaware. I had utilities just pull some amounts. It appears that the water portion was about $3,800, $3,813.06, and then of course sewer is 60% of that on top of the 3813, so that's an additional 2287.83. So yeah, significant bill. So really what he was requesting was that the sewer portion, he understands the water leak and the consumption. He was requesting council the sewer portion be waived because it never went into the sewer. And so the actual ask, I think, would be $2287.83.
Thank you. Councillor Dover?
Thank you, Worship. Just being new to this, what's been done in the past when these scenarios have happened?
Kevin?
Yeah, through your worship, in the past, council has declined them, and also in the past, my understanding is that the homeowners, depending on situations, have worked through their home insurance.
Okay. Because this request doesn't seem like unreasonable to me, but I don't know like what that opens the door to, but I mean, it seemed like a reasonable request he's asking for, but thank you.
Yeah, the dilemma in terms of water sewer is it's a self-funding utility, and so every piece of the operation, both the cost of providing services and supporting it, is paid by the water rate. So if you waive $1,000 worth of bills, that has to be recovered through the other users in order to ensure that it's not like we could have a grant that we could offset it with. Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, these things are regrettable, but it's been the position of council that the owners are responsible for monitoring and maintaining their water system in their property. We've had requests where toilets have been running all winter because the person was out of country. We've had a company who bottles water not want to pay the sewer component because the water doesn't go down to the sewage and it's always been declined. So a change of thing would be a change of policy with perhaps retroactive challenges to it.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.6, we have a letter from Barbara Murray, Bears Matter Consulting from Nanoose Bay. Councillor Javetkov.
I move we receive for information.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Earl. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.7, we have a letters from Nick Proch and Janelle Haney, members of Action for Canada. Councillor Javetkov.
Move we receive for information.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilbur. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 8, reports. Report number 21058 from the Development Services Manager regarding a temporary use permit application for 200 116th Avenue. Councillor Parslow.
Move the report number 21-058 from the Development Services Manager, read temporary use permit 21-02 application Rodeo Fitness Club, 200 116th Avenue be received. Further, that temporary use permit 21-02 be approved for 200 116th Avenue to allow the use of a fitness center, as long as the proposed use is only operated out of the existing shop on the lands. No new buildings are constructed on the lands, and off-street parking is provided for both the principal and accessory uses for a period of 36 months from date of issuance.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Javetkov. Discussion. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. The one question I have is the 36 months for a temporary use permit. That is, if my memory serves correct, atypical for us. Usually we go upwards of 18 months, do we not? If I could get some clarification from staff on that.
Kevin?
Yeah, through your worship. We've done a few actually upwards of 36. I think we did a recent one for Bannister Ford, I thought was upwards of 36 months. So what this is it gives the business an opportunity to test the market and see if it's viable before we go through a more permanent rezoning process. So seems like it's a good fit for them and for us really in the long run. So
thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.2, we have report number 21064 from the Development Services Manager regarding the development variance permit as reconsideration for Rorson Development. Councillor Javetkov.
I move recommendation that report number 21-064 from the Development Services Manager, redevelopment variance permit 21-01 as amended, reconsideration of DVP 19-04C for Rorson Development be received. Further, that development variance permit 21-01 be approved as amended.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parslow. This came back as a result of comments we received through that process, and so it's not we're changing anything further. We just received comments from, I think, Ministry of Highways and someone else in regards to our DVP, or the DVP. Blair?
Yes, Your Worship, I believe we received 3. I believe one was CN Rail, wanting them to make sure they were aware of noise concerns. I'm guessing that's what the concerns that were raised on the whistle cessation we were hoping for. The other was from PNG, and then
Okay.
the other was Highways.
Perfect, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried, thank you. 8.3, we have report number 21065 from the Public Works Manager regarding requests for quotations for electrical instrumentation services for our water and environmental. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I will move the recommendation that report number 21-065 from the Public Works Manager regarding request for quotations 2021-04 electrical and instrumentation services, water and environmental be received. Further, that Council award request for quotations 2021-04 electrical and instrumentation services, water and environmental to EPSCAN for the indicated term of June 1st, 2021 to May 31st, 2024 at the rates provided in the bid form and provided again in this report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Duvackoff. Discussion? Comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, sorry, Councillor Dober, you wanted to speak to it?
Yeah.
Please, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just had a couple questions, I think to Kevin, but when we're going through this process and you see like markup materials, most companies are putting a bid in at 15% and then you get one at 9%. Like, what is the savings on that? Like, do we know how much we spend on materials? Because is this for the whole electrical contract with the city?
Go ahead, Kevin.
So through Your Worship, this one is specific to the water treatment plant and our facilities, reservoirs, lift stations and things like that, so water and environmental. And the materials varies depending on the project, so, or on the given year and what we're doing. So 6% variance on markup, you know, it still could be significant, but we're probably talking in the neighborhood of $6,000 to $10,000 overall. Okay. So it's not a deciding factor in this particular case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. 8.4, we have report number 21061 from the General Manager of Development Services regarding a request for quotations for the 2021 capital roadworks. Councillor Duvackoff.
Move that report number 21-061 from the General Manager of Development Services request for quotations 2021-15 2021 capital roadworks be received. Further, that Council award request for quotations 2021-15 2021 capital roadworks to Peters Brothers Construction Limited for the contract price of $2,637,515.09, excluding taxes.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parslow. Discussion? Councillor Parslow.
Well, I think it's important to just read part of this, just for the interest of the public. This project would include 15th Street from 97th Avenue to Alastra Avenue, 13th Street from 102nd Avenue to Alastra Avenue, 10th Street from 92nd Avenue to 94th Avenue, 10th Street from 110th Avenue to 112th Avenue, and 17th Street from 89th Avenue to 210 Road. And my question, any idea when this work would begin, or would it be, we're looking at September or October? Being a bit facetious there, but.
So through Your Worship, typically once awarded by council, then we'll give notification to the contractor. Typically, work usually starts sometime after May long weekend, just due to weather, frost, and all that. So it'll be the first part of June by the time they order materials for any of the underground and things like that and get contracts in place. But yeah, they'll be anxious to get going.
Thank you, Kevin. And $3,077,000 was our anticipated budget, and we're the work comes in at 2.6, so that's very positive as well. Blair?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick follow-up to Councillor Parslow. So within the contracts that are signed by the successful proponents, there are timelines that they have to meet to get it done on substantial completion and so on. So each year and each project is dealt with that way.
Councillor Dober, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kevin, I just had a question, like, usually on these big projects, there's like a contingency for extras, like is it, I know we're under budget obviously on this, but is it like a 10% that you allow for extras, or does it turn out to be more than that or less than that?
Kevin?
Yes, through your worship, the contract price of 2.6 includes a contingency of $250,000. So that's 250 that's already allocated for all of the projects.
Oh, okay.
For us, for those unforeseen. So that's a good thing. We are under budget, so that affords us some ability, if council wishes to perhaps to identify maybe another project and get some, do a change order under the contract and see if we can get some pricing. That's something that we can certainly bring back to council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Staff's comment makes me ask this question because it's been an issue, right? Do we now have some consequences for long delays in completion? I'm thinking of the frustration over some road projects in the past that went from 1 year to another year, and do we have some consequences?
Blair?
Thank you, Your Worship. Built into the contracts, and Kevin, you can jump in if you'd like, there are consequences built in, usually financial issues. As we seen on the road, I believe you're referring to down by the college, there was an impact. The intent is, as people bid these projects, there's a time frame they have to be dealt with and completed within. Sometimes a project may come in slightly higher, knowing that project timeline is going to be difficult to meet, but there are consequences for not meeting the contract itself.
Supplement.
Go ahead.
So supplementary question, Kevin talked about maybe another project within the funding envelope. I would like to know how we put that forward as a motion. Can we do that after we've finalized this matter?
Yeah, I think honestly we deal with this one, and then as we move forward, if there's one follow, then fine with that. Blair, you got to...
Just following up, Your Worship, that is each year when these projects are put out to tender, if there is room at the end and we have allocated more within our capital budget than what the tenders come in at, we will look at the next highest priority. Most likely, we will bring a recommendation back for your consideration to move forward. I know we did that with $400,000 of overlay work last year as well. So I think you can anticipate a future request with the opportunity to look at yet another project under our capital paving.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So I think I'm going to break now for 7 minutes, and we'll reconvene at 10:35. Thank you. So we'll call ourselves back to order, and we're on reports. Item 8.5, report number 21062 from the General Manager of Development Services regarding the BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement for 2021-2022. Councillor Wilbur.
I will move that report number 21-062 from the General Manager of Development Services regarding BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement 21-22 be received. Further, Council approve the BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement for 21-22 for $374,845.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kemp, discussion. Blair, do you want to give an update on?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this budget they have put forward, if you remember, council made a decision some time ago to reduce the amount that was going to be put in by the city. I think it was $350,000 was the motion. This is, although it looks close, there is an additional $31,000, you will note, in the budget documents that have been put forward, added there. They originally last year put $62,000 forward to the city to help offset the costs with transit, and that went across the province, not just to Dawson Creek. Our share was $62,000. Last year, $31,000 was applied to the operating budget, and again this year. So had it not been for that, we would have been over $400,000. But other than that, Your Worship, this is the budget that we will be operating under for the coming year, with the years to come yet to be determined.
Thank you. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I know as one of the conditions of accepting those monies from the province, we did commit to maintain the existing service level until the end of 2024, I believe. I just note, and I know I've mentioned this to Blair, but it probably bears repeating for anyone watching publicly, in the recent provincial budget, the province has committed to making transit free for citizens of British Columbia under the age of 12, given that our public transit is primarily used as a commuter service for children going to and from school. I am eagerly awaiting the details from the province with respect as to who is going to cover the cost of that, given that those revenues do come back to the city to offset our subsidy. So if the province is committing on our behalf to allow students to ride for free, are we going to be compensated in future years, bearing in mind that we are committed to maintaining that service up to 2024?
Blair?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Councillor Earl. The commitment was a request, not a guarantee, till 2024, although there's no indication that that would change. But in receiving that funding, it was please do this, not you must, in that sense. The other one, we've received nothing, Kevin, unless I'm unaware yet, with the information that you've just put forward formally from either the government or BC Transit on that. The one thing you will note in the budget documents that were presented, you will note that the BC Transit Authority has put forward $67,000 in revenue, I believe it is, that they would see us receive. We are a little more conservative. We have budgeted $55,000, so there is a difference there, and I think at $55,000, we're hopeful that we will see that revenue. So,
Thank you, Blair. Councillor Parslow?
Well, I'm not very confident that the provincial government will be able to give an additional amount to cover the under 12. I would wager that it will be something we have to eat. I noticed that the total cost of transit for Dawson Creek is $833,170, not much short of $1 million. And I looked at all the things that we're cutting, and I looked at all the challenges we do have, and we're making progress on those challenges. I acknowledge that and appreciate that. I just can't bring myself to support transit in Dawson Creek.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councillor Parslow opposed. We'll record that. Bylaws, item 9, report 9.1 is report number 21050 from the Financial Services Manager regarding our loan authorization bylaw number 4503 2021 for the capital paving program that Council has put forward. Councillor Javetkov.
I'll move that report number 20-050 from the Financial Services Manager loan authorization capital paving program bylaw number 4503 2021 be received, further that loan authorization capital paving program bylaw number 4503 2021 be given first 3 readings, further that staff be directed to forward the loan authorization bylaw to the Ministry for approval. Further, that approval of the electors be received through the alternative approval process. Further, that the deadline for elector response be set for at least 30 days after the second advertisement is published. And further, that the elector response from attached to this report be approved.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kemp, discussion. Councillor Javetkov, go ahead. And then Councillor Earl. Do you have any comments? No? Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm thinking back to the beginning of our term when we were first wrapping our heads around the city's financial situation, and I know at the time the question was asked around early repayment options for some of the city's higher interest capital debt. And we discovered at that time that there weren't any. Now, obviously, this is me being an optimist, but should we as an organization, as a city, experience some financial windfall or unanticipated amount of monies coming in that would allow us to pay back debt early in this borrowing that we're proposing to undertake, are there going to be allowances for that?
So the borrowings that we currently have, some give you the authorization, the ability to repay, and others are locked in. The Encana Event Center debt is a locked-in debt, where others carry the opportunity at some point. Flavia, do you want to speak to it? Blair? Go ahead, Flavia.
So, through your worship, we do analyze it every year because any borrowing that was over 10 years, in the 10 years period, the MFA revises the rate. So for those borrowings, we always start comparing to the current one that we are paying on, and then we analyze if it's advantageous or not to come out from the borrowing. So yes, we are still doing that on an annual basis. Anyone on the list, we compare the rates. We actually have good rates right now. So for your point, Councillor, we are doing this analysis every year. And if something advantageous come, I would come and present to ask to pay up front.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Does it answer?
Kind of, yeah. I just wanted to, I just know there's some of our debt which we're able to pay down early, and some, like the event center, is locked in at 5.6, which I think is currently the highest interest rate we've got on the books. And I just wanted to make sure that we're not getting in a situation where we're locked in at a higher rate and we don't have the ability to renegotiate or pay down early. Anyway.
On this case here, because that specific situation of Encana, they actually, MFA, they don't do that approach anymore. It was a swap transaction, and it was not an advantage for us. So we discussed it with MFA. They don't do anymore this type of transaction where we kind of get stuck in one specific rate.
Thank you. Councillor Dover.
Thank you, Your Worship. I still am, real hesitant on these loans. Like, I look at this debt servicing on here, and it's, we're going to be, in 5 years, once the 5-year term's done, we're going to be 1.3 million per year in debt servicing for this project. And I understand, the roads and the conditions and that we let it go, but I just don't see this fixing it. I think that, in 5 years, we're going to have other issues. And I know we have a plan to do stuff, but I won't, I'll be against taking the loan still. So.
All right, thank you. Further discussion, Councillor, Blair?
Just possibly a quick response to Councillor Dober. By no means do we want to leave the impression with this borrowing bylaw that $20 million will repair the road infrastructure as we see it today in the city of Dawson Creek. This is probably a 20-year turnaround. This is the beginning. $20 million, although it sounds like a lot of money, to put it in context, 15th Street last year, which is a wonderful redevelopment of a street, was $5 million alone. This deals with our underground services as well. We've taken on the initiative, so at whichever point council decides to move forward, I don't think this, and I want to be clear, this will not achieve every road in Dawson Creek meeting probably the expectations of the people that live here.
Councillor Parslow?
Just a comment. I mean, I'm a sort of a person who doesn't like to borrow either. But what alternative do we have? Because we know from experience that if roads get past a certain point, you're basically rebuilding the entire road. And it's at least double the cost. I guess there is an alternative. Some of our paved roads could return to being, and not being facetious at all here, to gravel, right? But I don't think that's what we want. So I don't see an alternative. But to be aggressive about repairing these roads, because it's going to be a long-term saving.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, the aspect is really about, we've done a very good job over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Debt management has been very positive. We got a couple of the major debt leaving us with the Encana Event Center in 2026, I believe. And so this is managing costs of providing services, providing capital, and then continuing to stay on top of that stuff that if we don't do the major infrastructure now, does it cost us more in the long term by further eroding bases and all of that stuff? So we have a plan in place that we're going to try to do some major work over the next 4 or 5 years and begin that process in 2022. And hopefully we find a way that the competitiveness of bids and as things like that, and as well as our own fiscal position of continuing to make inroads into our Peace River Agreement, all balances that in terms of having a strong fiscal future. Councillor Dober.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, Blair mentions that this is, by all means not going to fix everything, and I understand that there's going to be more issues, but so now we're financing, fixing these over 5 years, which is our debt servicing is 15 years. So where does that put us in 5 years when another whole section of the town is in the same position? Because we're redoing all these roads, right? Like it's everything. They're already at that point where we're redoing all that. So in another 5 years, there's going to be more that are at that point. So where are we going to be then when we got 15 years of debt servicing left on this?
Thank you. Blair?
Your Worship, that would be a decision of council, as I indicated, I think, of whether additional borrowing would be considered at that time as those come forward. I think one of the key indicators in this report, and I'll point you to it, and I know that you've already looked at it, is under item 8, your debt servicing costs as a percentage of general fund revenue in the budget. We have a policy that states it can go as high as 15% in the city, and I think if you look at business or your home, that's a relatively good number to work with. We will max out under this borrowing in 2025 at only 6.6% of the operating budget being debt repayment. I think that's a key indicator. Although it is a lot of money, you look at it in the ability to afford it while you're moving your infrastructure ahead. And I just wanted to put that forward. But will there be a need for additional discussion on borrowing? I think that discussion will come as these projects go through the system, more debt is retired. As you indicated, Councillor Dober, there is a significant debt that is retired in 2027, which is the event center itself.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. And this goes to Councillor Dober's concern, and I guess everyone on here is concerned nobody borrows that amount of money lightly. Certainly, it's not something it took me a while to warm up to the idea, but the mayor's point about the trade-offs between letting the roads fall into such a state of disrepair that you're spending 2 or 3 times as much to rebuild as opposed to fix them. But we do also have a significant potential revenue source coming online next year, I believe, when the water reclamation plant is something, I believe it's 2022. I just want to make sure, just for clarification, will that money be going into utilities or will it be available to service debt servicing and general revenues?
Blair?
Thank you, and through your worship, that is a discussion that mayor and council have yet to determine on that. We will enter that discussion. There are some opportunities that we briefly discussed about how to handle that additional revenue once that water revenue comes to the city versus our partner now in Shell. But again, I think there are opportunities as to how that money is used, but mayor and council will determine that in the future. And that's, I think, a healthy discussion that will be brought forward.
Thank you. Councillor Dober?
Thank you, Your Worship. Last question. Blair, when you referred to 15th Street costing $5 million last year, where did that money come from?
Yeah. So, thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Dober. That was Peace River Agreement money, PRA, or fair share revenue was utilized for that. The dollars we're talking about here under the borrowing bylaw will not be the only dollars spent on road infrastructure. There's also the goal as we move forward to use more PRA money in capital. So this $5 million each year would be topped up with additional PRA revenue to probably look in the range of probably a $10 million road program, I would suggest, each year.
Okay. And that's a good point. The council, we're authorizing administration to move forward with this proposed borrowing bylaw. Administration will bring back that capital budget program with this as included in it, at which time council will approve it or not approve it at that point as well, annually, right? So, okay. Thank you. Further discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councillor Dober opposed, and we'll record that. Thank you. Item 10, Mayor's Business. Just a few quick items. I had a meeting requested by Fortis, BC. Fortis are doing a major project, an LNG project in Squamish, the wood fiber LNG, and just reached out to me. I'd been involved with the mayor and council at some point when we had a tour, and Fortis are now looking at developing the Eagle Spirit pipeline there, and just had some community initiative interaction questions, and we had a great discussion with them for last week for an hour or so. We participated in the WorkSafe BC Day of Mourning proclamation and service at the front lawn of City Hall here, and really appreciate folks observing that and taking the time to participate in it. I had an event, this part of, I guess this whole part about community to me, and we had a little fella, 5-6 years old, who's a avid little snowboarder at Powder King, and he had a kind of a bad accident and got banged up pretty good, and ended up in Prince George Hospital having some major surgery, and this little guy has battled back like within a week or 10 days, and obviously the descendant of the Nicholson family, Blaine and Elaine, and grandson. And so when I saw and I heard it, I thought I wanted to do a little something for Owen to let him know we were appreciating his little bravery. And so I had him come in, and we did a little ceremony for Owen, and he's a very cool little guy, and so I appreciated that. Last week, the RCMP, Damon was in, and we had 2 or 3 awards that the RCMP wanted to provide to local community residents who were involved in participating in helping support public safety, and one of them was Tyler Meadows, and Tyler was involved in the incident at No Frills parking lot, and interjected himself in there to help support the business owner at the time, and so we had that event on Thursday, I think. I just want to talk very quickly about one other. NCLGA was last week, and I know that for everybody, it's a busy time. I participated on the NCLGA last week on Wednesday, Thursday, through the resolutions and a lot of the business sessions. It was really, they did a very good job considering that virtual forum, and number of resolutions that went forward from NCLGA, and so overall, I was really pleased to see the level of participation, and got involved in 4 or 5 different things on behalf of the city. We had a presentation today as a delegation from the Timberline Trail and Nature Club in regards to the Mcqueen Slough and the request for some support for liability insurance. I know that they've spoke to Director Hebert from Electoral Area D, of which this falls within his area. Leonard and I had a brief discussion about it last week at the RD, where he had raised it, that they had contacted him and were coming to us. And so I wonder if council would be willing to direct me to meet with Leonard Hebert to talk about this issue and bring a report back to council at the next meeting in regards to what Area D's plans or recommendations are going to be for that, and then we can bring that back to council with our information then in terms of what we, council may need to be aware of what D are going to do at Leonard. Councillor Parslow?
I would be willing to make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Wilbur? Discussion? Councillor Dober?
Thank you, Your Worship. Would it be worth talking to the school district about it as well, like to just, because obviously they use the facility?
Yeah, I think they were going to be talking to them. I'll start it with Leonard, because I'm sure that because it's in Leonard's area, I'm assuming that he also has engaged some stuff. But I want to bring that back just to see what Director Hebert's plans are, and then how we can work together, because it is a really important, I think, asset for all of us to make sure we do what we can. Councillor Parslow?
Well, you just said it. It's a very important asset that many people enjoy, and it grieves me that about the neglect. I mean, I took people out there from Grand Prairie it was last year, towards the end of the season. The black terns were there, and to see the place just, deteriorating like it is.
Yeah.
And, a couple of comments were made there in the presentation, that since Ducks Unlimited moved their northern headquarters to Williams Lake, there seems to be a dwindling interest, and I really want to see that place developed and enjoyed by people and for future generations.
For sure. Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Javetkov?
Yeah, this insurance thing is, it's quite a big issue. If you're involved with any organization, the Ski Hill is an example. And the city is another example. Things like putting up the Christmas tree. It's in the city, it's sort of a city project, yet the Oilman's is putting it up. So the Oilman's requires liability insurance to cover the city. Now, if we used a subcontractor, they would require liability insurance to cover the Oilman's Club and to cover the city. Like it's a moneymaker for insurance companies. I mean, we've been putting up the tree for 30 years and have never had a claim. But every year we pay. So over 30 years, if we paid on an average of $500 a year, that's $15,000 that the insurance companies have made without costing anything other than the process of handling the money. So Mcqueen Slough is another example. To me, if there was an organization like the city, for example, that wanted to take over Mcqueen Slough and cover all of the liability for everybody that's working in there, so you didn't have this duplication, like every time somebody goes up to do something, they've got to get insurance to cover off, the city or whoever's looking after it. It would be nice to see a solution like that, but I don't agree with us putting money into it. I mean, yeah, it's a nice facility, just like a whole bunch of other facilities are nice. But the Mcqueen Slough, it seems to me that if the regional district took it on as their location, their project, and had it covered under their insurance program for everybody that's working up there is under their supervision or whatever, and so there's only one payment of insurance. It's not you know, duplicated. Every time somebody goes to do something, they have to buy an insurance, liability insurance. It just seems crazy to me, the way that insurance business works.
Thank you. Did we vote? No. No? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Chief Administrative Officer's operational update. Sorry, Blair. Councillor Parslow, sorry.
We're not missing one thing. We're missing Red presentation.
Did he have a request?
Yep. About grant applications.
Sorry. Brenda?
Yeah, through your worship, the request was to direct the city to pursue grant opportunities.
Sorry.
And that would be if council was wanting to lead in that direction or not.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Well, just as a refresher for new council members, 2017, the representative of Peace Energy gave a presentation and shared the Hudson Hope experience. Hudson Hope got a grant. The grant application was prepared by Peace Energy on the District of Hudson Hope's behalf and received a grant that the exact figure it states me, but it was in excess of $1 million to fund that project that was illustrated in the slideshow. The council in 2017 asked Peace Energy to do the work which was presented, but also to bring back to council opportunities for grants to consider, which is what Greg shared. So I'm not saying that I really believe that solar energy is and will continue to be an increasing presence in the energy smorgasbord of Canada. Efforts to be net zero, which I find hard to understand how you'd achieve there, but I do believe that solar has a significant part to play. I believe that we should have a plan that enables us to take part in leveraging money to the city for solar projects. So I would appreciate making if we could get more details about these grants. So I'd like to make a motion that we research the details of these grants in more detail and have the details presented to us at a future council meeting.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? Blair, any questions?
Your worship, through you, we can definitely go to work on that, find out what grants are available. I do want to state, though, that we have not put anything within our capital plan as of yet. So we've spoke about this before, getting a grant that would fund 80% of a project if we don't have our 20% allocated may be difficult at this point, but we can bring a report back. And should council determine they want to move forward, possibly we look at it in the years ahead under our capital program. That may be a direction that mayor and council want to set.
I think that piece that he talked about, the grants available to do that planning and that kind of work in terms of maybe getting us started in that regard to start to understand what some of those impacts and availabilities are. Oh, sorry.
I was just following up, your worship. The work that the Peace Energy Co-op did in this report is significant. The work that they put into our facilities, looking at the capital costs, although those numbers may be somewhat off today, I think it should be recognized the amount of work they've already put forward on behalf of the city to present what the capital costs were, what the savings are. At first blush, if you looked at just if we had to pay 100% of it, it would be a 20 to 30 year turnaround. The goal here is to get the grants to offset that so that your return on that investment is much quicker and much sooner.
Good.
Speaking financially.
Yes. Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
I'm particularly interested in Dred's comment about the new grant that's just been announced that wasn't listed here, that could ladder with the other one that was 80%, so you could possibly be 100%. But I really do, I know it's a juggling act, but I really do think there's long-term savings there. It is, you correctly say, we have to be intentional in budgeting, but if I hear there's 100% possibility, then let's look at it. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Blair?
Thank you, Your Worship. And not a lot to report. You will note that attached to your agenda were some answers to some questions that were raised when Highways gave the presentation on the 8th Street Bridge. I have included those. It was based on signage and so on. If there are any questions, I would try and answer those. These are the answers we received from Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. So.
Thank you.
It is, again, this is going to be an extremely important project to the city, but it is going to create some challenges on the traffic movement on 8th Street. So as we get that information, we will do our very best to make sure we communicate it through our methods here at the city. Ministry of Transportation and the contractor are committed to doing what they can, but I can see this moving, probably being a bit challenging, but moving forward as they learn from what they're doing out there.
Yeah, we've had, we got 2 or 3 businesses right there that have been directly impacted as a result of COVID, with Sam's Restaurant and his hotel and the tire shop and the mall and the OJ Restaurant. And so I'm really, really concerned about that traffic management and ensuring, we talked about it with them. And then, so that ongoing, how we ensure we do everything we can to minimize impact and access to those businesses. And then that 4-day closure really worries me about, and they said they would be starting in a couple of weeks, and we haven't heard anything. And so that is a little bit of a concern to me, because we're into construction season, and the longer they go, deeper they go into June, and the further they get into the winter when they're not going to get it completed. So anyway, there are just some signals there that are worrisome to me, that we need to stay on them to make sure we communicate with the highways. You guys good? Thank you. All right, so diary, nothing new. Consent calendar, got a couple items moved. Councillor Parslow, second Councillor Kemp. You want to speak to it, Councillor Parslow?
I do want to speak to it.
Okay.
So I want to speak to the letter from the RCMP, from the acting city manager, Walter Babbage. I think there's an omission in the letter. It's the paragraph that reads, within the current 2012 police service agreement, municipalities with a population of less than 15,000, a population of less than 15, is billed at a 70-30. But that's not true. People, it's between a range of 5,000 to 15, isn't it? Because the municipalities less than 5,000 pay 0.
Right.
So I wondered if we should send a letter back to, pointing out that error to this gentleman. Just a thought.
Good point. Blair?
We can do that. We can contact Walter just to let them know that we've received the letter and that within it there was, this point was raised. So as you said, under 5,000 pays nothing under the taxation issue for policing. 5 to 15 pays 70%. Once you crest 15,000 as a municipality, you will pay 90% of your costs. Yeah. So it's a very significant issue, has been for a long time in our province, to try and find equity in the distribution of the cost of policing.
So perhaps if we can, we'll receive the consent calendar and we'll lift the letter from the superintendent and direct administration to respond to that item.
I do have another point within
Okay, so let's receive consent, and then we'll direct staff under that. So all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we've approved consent, and now, Councillor Parslow, lifting item 2, the letter from McLaren, you want to direct staff to provide a response?
Yes, so in addition to the point I've raised earlier, and this again is really more of a question. So continuing in the same paragraph, in a letter dated May the 15th, 2020, then Assistant Deputy Minister and Director of Police Services, Brenda Butterworth Carr, stated, effective April the 1st, 2019, the existing LMD IHIT is to be included as part of the RCMP provincial service, with the 70/30 provincial federal cost share applied to all LMD IHIT costs. This means that all municipalities participating in LMD IHIT will benefit from the 70/30 cost share. So my question, by reading that, did Assistant Deputy Minister Brenda Butterworth Carr infer that this IHIT idea, or all IHITs, would be 70/30, and that would apply, the 70/30 would apply to Pouce Coupe, to Chetwynd? I just don't know. I'd like slight clarification about that.
Okay.
I think it's an excellent idea, but...
So we'll direct administration to write to the city manager in Prince George, clarifying the statement about all municipalities with a population under 15 paying 70/30, and the clarification around the memo from Brenda Butterworth Carr about the inclusion of IHIT in that.
So moved.
Moved. Second. Councillor Kemp, discussion. Councillor Earl, go ahead.
Just to while we're discussing this, question I had is certainly, when we hear that we are expanding our capacity with respect to lab services in Fort St. John, and that is going to benefit Dawson, or something like that, where it's in a reasonably close proximity. Prince George is 4.5 hours away driving. I'm just wondering if the addition, I think any community would want to have this capacity, so I don't disagree with the impulse, but I am curious as to whether this particular IHIT unit existing in Prince George will give us in Dawson Creek, 4.5 hours away, appreciably any more capacity to deal with and investigate crimes of this nature. Is it going to be appreciably different than if they send somebody up here from Vancouver, or and if we're looking at relying on a larger municipality for this particular, I get it, we're all in the northern zone, but it's a big zone, and I'm not sure what the benefit to us absorbing this cost is if there's no difference from the kind of service we'd receive out of Vancouver or Kelowna.
And that's the part we don't know what we're absorbing. They're moving forward with that. So that's the piece we need to ensure we have clarification. And at this point, there isn't anything that we know that they're asking us for, other than that they're pursuing this and on behalf of Prince George subdivision. And so that's why we left it in consent, because there was no direct request to us.
Sorry, it does seem as though there is an implicit implication that we're expected to pay for it. So although they didn't explicitly ask, they did imply that as a municipality with more than 5,000 people in the northern zone, we would be partly on the hook for some of the cost of this.
Well, some of the pieces that we pay for today are all included in them. When major crimes or those initiatives come to us from Prince George and subdivision, we don't pay additionally for them. They are part of that agreement. So I think that's the issue today. They're looking at this concept, but there is no clarification. We'll certainly move it forward and ask for that clarification from the Prince George subdivision and RCMP as it begins to move forward. Blair?
Your Worship, just to be very clear, we have had no contact from the RCMP based on this, so we will reach out. We will bring that information back to Mayor and Council, but to date, there has been no engagement on this issue with the RCMP whatsoever from their side, giving us a call. So,
thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Strategic priorities and media. So we'll now move to recess to our closed meeting, and I need a resolution to move into closed. Agenda items 3.1 and 4.1 for section 90 minutes. Agenda item 7.1, section 91J, information is prohibited from disclosure under the Freedom of Information Protection. And agenda items 8.1 and 8.2 are sections 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. Councillor Wilbur, second. Councillor Kempf, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. So we'll recess for 5 minutes to allow cleanup, and we'll move to closed.